Thank you, Martin. And today, I'm very excited to talk to you all about you've launched an L1, now what do you do? We're going to share a little bit about our secret sauce of how we've helped extremely successful and high throughput chains, like, for example, MapleStory Universe or Gonzilla, or many of the other chains that are out there building on Avalanche L1s, get to a state where they're successful and thriving in the ecosystem. So if you want to as well, you can save our website, which is app.avacloud.io. And Martin gave a little bit of an intro for what I was doing before this, but I'm coming up on my 1 year at AvaLabs, which is very exciting. It's my first summit, too. And I also want to talk about just where I came from and like the pain points that I had. I actually used to be working in the US government, and there was a point where I was helping implement blockchains in the government space. It was a very lengthy process, and actually one of the reasons why I wanted to move over to the tech side, because I saw how many improvements could have been made for the whole deployment process, for getting through compliance and regulatory checks, and I saw that a lot of the things that we were having pain with could have been solved with what AvaCloud is building today. So I also got really pumped up by some of the earlier talks in the main stage, and I think also one of the aspects too is like building use cases that really have real traction and some real value to them. So that's extremely important to me when I'm helping people go from 0 to 1 and starting their own L1. So if you don't know about AvaCloud or you missed the earlier sessions, there were a couple of L1 providers that were up on stage talking about what they offer. AvaCloud, I would say, is a mix of 3 different core components. The first of which is our client services aspect, where we have folks who have been OGs in the Avalanche ecosystem before mainnet even. And we also have a bunch of people who are experts in their fields who have now dedicated their time to helping other people launch their L1s. This also includes things like co-marketing as well, so this is really like a 360 service for people that decide to launch an Avalanche L1. The second part here that I'm kind of covering are these built-in features. So similarly to how Gelato, for example, featured a couple of their different tooling that's built in, AvaCloud is meant to be a one-stop shop where people don't have to go to a dozen different providers and different bills for their business to get started. Really, it should be simple and as easy as launching in a web page, clicking through buttons, and then having everything they need to have a business built on-chain. So that's really the ethos, and I think something that helps differentiate what we do. And then finally, the last aspect, which is kind of the core piece of what everything runs on, is the managed infrastructure aspect. So we help build and manage the infrastructure on behalf of our clients. This is also customizable as well. So we have out of the gate packages that you can launch within 15 minutes. In fact, launching the infrastructure is not the hard part. We've gotten this down to a science. I think we're now over 700 plus testnet free trials and also paid launches. So it's pretty crazy numbers that people are just able to spin up L1s that quickly with AvaCloud. And in addition, you can customize this to the scaling needs of your business. So if you do need actually to grow in a way where you need heavier infrastructure, or even in the opposite direction where you're saying, I need less infrastructure, or I want to distribute my infrastructure to other people, this is all an option that we offer with AvaCloud as well. OK, so this is about what to do after you've launched your L1. But I categorize this in my head as the full life cycle journey of what you kind of see with our clients. So we have a pre-launch period and a post-launch period. And the actual launch part is literally just a line. It's pretty insignificant in terms of what actually happens here. But pre-launch is a lot of consultations, a lot of discussions. And I would say this is a really, really key part of getting everything right before you go live. There are a couple of parts that are continuous iterations over time of maybe launching, doing multiple rehearsals, and then also things like co-marketing and support and maintenance. So with that, I'll dive into pre-launch, so things to know before you launch your L1. I'm going to breeze past a lot of these, but I would say this is something you should absolutely know, and it's not an exhaustive list of everything that you should do and to be able to answer before you launch your L1. So for example, for your business, when you think about how do you help get started on your application, this normally entails things like, what does your end-to-end process look like? What kind of user interactions are you having on chain? What is actually touching your chain and versus what are you storing off-chain, for example? And then also, again, highlighting what Santi had mentioned earlier on main stage, how do you just build a sustainable business? We really want to help people get there, and that's a part of our L1 journey as well. For permissioning and privacy, a few of the questions that you should be able to answer as well are, what things do you want visible to the public? You can tailor this for things like your Explorer. Maybe this is also who's able to transact on your chain or deploy contracts on your chain. And then also, when it comes to privacy, you can actually have a public chain while also implementing privacy solutions on top and hiding things like on-chain data of transaction amounts and user addresses. Validator management was mentioned earlier. So especially with post-Avalanche 9000 upgrades, there's now an additional customization that can be made to how you manage your validators. So not just proof of authority, but also proof of stake and some custom blends of management where you can have a mix of openness as well as control over who enters your network. You can also determine who receives rewards in the network. What are the validator weights for how those are distributed so you can make sure your chain still is up and running and then also decentralized over time. So validator management, very interesting. Definitely not enough time to cover during the 20-minute session, but come talk to us if you want to learn more. Tokenomics, we also talked about native gas tokens on your network. So how do you want that to be configured? You can have valueless gas. You can also have things like, say, like AVAX, which our friends at Kuroshi did for their native gas, or importing some ERC20 that has already been created on C-Chain and bring that over. Things like, will you need liquidity from elsewhere, if that's C-Chain or otherwise? And then also how you want your end users to experience gas as well. And then think about how your end users should be interacting on chain. So what kind of users do you have? Are they Web3 natives? Are they people who are, don't want to see a blockchain, don't want to ever feel the fact that they're on a blockchain? And also, what kind of information will you take from on-chain and push out to them? So all of these aspects deal with what things and toggles you'll put on in terms of our tooling and our infrastructure. So this is really important to be able to answer for how your user experience flows. So based on this, I don't know if this video is going to play, but you'll be able to launch your application. It's going to be a fun little visual of congratulations, you launched your own L1. And then you can actually go in there and start playing around with the different tooling that's available to you within AvaCloud. So now we're in the post-launch phase, right? There's, again, not an exhaustive list here, but a couple of core pieces that we will see early on, as well as through the mid stages of people getting ready to prepare their chain for onboarding. So one overlooked piece, actually, that we offer is that you can have a collaboration with multiple team members on your chain. So within AvaCloud, you can manage an L1 with multiple people. This is the ability to add other team members and also soon to be able to sign off on changes that happen on your network with multi-sig. So this is definitely a really neat tooling that we have specifically within AvaCloud, and I would say is a great way for you just to operate more efficiently for your blockchain network. The second piece that I wanted to cover here is also load testing and simulations. So one of my colleagues, Nick Stam, who is not here but his brother is, he wrote this really great article that helps reference how to get the most performance out of your blockchain. So really making sure that you're doing load testing. This is going to be very specific for your smart contracts and how you're going to interact on chain. And then also just making sure that you're hitting the right numbers that you need on testnet for when you're expecting to go live with customers. So we've done this recently with TickSpace, where we've done load testing and tried to fill up their blocks with the max number of transactions that they're doing for ticket minting. And this is really, really helpful, and I would say like a necessity for when you go live. They're onboarding like 11 million users at once, and just making sure that you have the capability to meet that throughput when the time comes. So give it a read through, and you can also find this documentation online on AvaCloud as well. Okay, the meat of the topic here is our built-in deployable features. So I don't think there's a ton of time to cover all of these in great depth, but if you want to learn more, we can give you a demo of each of these over in the showcase room, and also discuss if you want to schedule a meeting with us. But just going through a few of these, the data API, as I mentioned, is going to hold all of your indexed data on chain. This is going to be also important for if you want to do push notifications out to your users or deploy things like webhooks. So that's definitely a very useful tool for on-chain analytics. Gas relayer, this is something where you can pay for gas on behalf of your users. So it makes your Web3 experience for end users a little bit more Web 2 and seamless for them. Our most recent offering is AvaCloud Wallet as a Service, and I saw Gelato also had a Wallet as a Service offering, but ours essentially is a social login. So if you wanted to have end users log in with their email accounts, Google, Apple, X, or Facebook, they can onboard seamlessly without ever having to have an experience of like a Web3 wallet login, and that's incredibly important for adoption and also having a seamless Web 2 experience for end users. Interoperability is, or ICTT, is our native tooling to transfer tokens between L1s on Avalanche. So if you wanted to, say, have increased liquidity on chain or also transfer assets across your chain to other chains, ICTT is as simple as deploying a couple of contracts in a click-to-deploy fashion, and you can have it within minutes. Also, one thing that I really would like to highlight is that our privacy solution team is doing incredible things in terms of bringing privacy on-chain. This is going to enable a lot of adoption, especially in the financial services market, and it's just, in my opinion, a big game changer. You'll see a lot more to come from our privacy team. So the two aspects that are out right now are the ability to provide confidentiality and also anonymity on-chain. So what does that mean? You have the ability to have a fully public chain, but also still keep confidentiality of the actual token value amounts that are being transferred on-chain, as well as having anonymity of users that are transferring on-chain. So this is very important for financial use cases where they want to hide, which exact users are transferring what amounts when it comes to just like preserving competitive advantage and not revealing information that users actually don't want to be revealed. Okay, so just walking through one quick example, we see like archetypes of verticals, and I'm going to walk through gaming as one. I know we have also a great team in the room, MeWe, and their social use case. But gaming as one is just, oftentimes they'll need the push notifications and the on-chain data as like a streaming service. So we often recommend the data API, gas relayer for a smoother user experience, wallet as a service also for that smooth onboarding process. Sometimes interoperability. So we saw this with MapleStory Universe as well as Koroshi for bringing over AVAX. But it's not necessary unless you want to have some interoperability between different L1s in the Avalanche network. And then the verifiable random function is a really neat tool for that we've implemented. It's operating using Chainlink's VRF function, and it just provides provable fairness. So we'll see this for use cases where there is gambling or like proving like a dice roll or a random like distribution of rewards. And another use case just to walk through really quickly is for financial customers. So oftentimes we'll recommend Data API for different reasons, not because they need the push notifications, but oftentimes for on-chain analytics and just getting information about which addresses have what amount of token holdings and also metrics at large. Sometimes gas relayer or wallet as a service, depending on how those applications are interacting with end users. Interoperability, definitely for liquidity, oftentimes, and privacy solution, as I've mentioned, because it is a critical need for compliance and regulatory reasons. And then I just want to highlight for my friend out there who's Perry and running our AvaCloud Twitter. Perry is wonderful, but also we have a full suite of marketing folks who are working at Avalanche to help ensure your success. So really, this is a part of the 360 service that you can have a wonderful business, but not get any adoption or not get any exposure because there's no one talking about it. And I would say Avalanche is a very different community because of that. We have definitely a lot of support for you, for your team. We're always ready to talk about the people who are building with us, and we're very excited to always showcase the cool tech that they're making, what tools that they're using with AvaCloud. So we'll do anything from long-form content to posts and live streams, and I would definitely say co-marketing initiatives are a part of that post-launch period. So with that, I'm done. I think I finished on time. And thanks again for listening on what to do after you launch your L1. If you have questions or you want to talk to our team, definitely reach out and schedule time with us to meet. Thank you very much.